A dramatic moment unfolded in South Africa's parliament this week. A key witness broke down in tears, lawmakers demanded answers, and the question at the center of the storm was deeply troubling. Did private investigators secretly influence investigations inside South Africa's police watchdog? During a tense parliamentary inquiry, Sarah Jane Trent, the former assistant to controversial investigator Paul O'Sullivan, struggled to explain the legal basis for her involvement in investigations linked to the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, IPID. What followed was one of the most uncomfortable moments yet in a growing political investigation that could reshape how police oversight works in South Africa. Why this inquiry matters. To understand the significance of this moment, we need to look at why this parliamentary inquiry was launched in the first place. Members of Parliament are currently investigating serious allegations that private individuals may have influenced or participated in official investigations conducted by IPID, the body responsible for holding police officers accountable. IPID plays a critical role in South Africa's justice system. It investigates police misconduct, corruption, and abuses of power. But the credibility of the institution depends on one key principle: independence. If outside actors were involved in investigations without legal authority, critics argue that this could compromise the integrity of the entire process. And that is exactly what lawmakers are now trying to uncover. The allegations that triggered the inquiry. The parliamentary hearings were partly triggered by testimony from advocate Michael Mashuga, a former prosecutor from the National Prosecution Authority. Mashuga told the committee that IPID's independence may have been compromised during investigations involving former acting National Police Commissioner Phahlane. Phahlane himself has long argued that private investigator Paul O'Sullivan played an outsized role in investigations targeting him. Phahlane was dismissed from the South African Police Service in 2020 after being found guilty of dishonest conduct. However, the circumstances surrounding the investigations that led to his downfall remain highly contested. Mashuga's testimony suggested that private actors might have been more deeply involved in those investigations than previously understood. That allegation is now at the center of Parliament's inquiry. Sarah Jane Trent's testimony. On Thursday, lawmakers turned their attention to Sarah Jane Trent, who previously worked closely with O'Sullivan. Less than an hour into her testimony, the questioning became intense. Members of Parliament repeatedly asked Trent to identify the legal basis that allowed private organizations to assist IPID in high-profile investigations. Specifically, they wanted her to cite the exact section of the IPID Act that permits such collaboration. But Trent struggled to provide a clear answer. Under sustained questioning, she insisted that her role had been limited. She explained that she first approached O'Sullivan's investigative firm in February 2015 when she was unemployed. Interested in investigative work, she sent her CV to the organization. At the time, the firm had no vacancies. However, Trent said she offered to volunteer her services on a pro bono basis, helping with basic research and administrative work. She told MPs that she was not initially involved in major investigations or strategic meetings, but over time her responsibilities grew. Eventually, Trent became a director at O'Sullivan's investigative firm, as well as the anti-corruption organization Forensics for Justice. She held those roles for approximately 6 years. The key investigation. The most controversial aspect of Trent's testimony focused on the investigation into former police commissioner Phahlane. Paul O'Sullivan had filed a formal complaint against Phahlane in 2016. That complaint ultimately triggered an investigation by IPID. Trent confirmed that she assisted with certain aspects of the case. This included conducting background research and gathering information related to the investigation. She also acknowledged that she had met with former IPID head Robert McBride and the lead investigator in the case, Mandla Mahlanga. But the moment of tension came when MPs pressed her to explain whether private investigators were legally allowed to assist IPID. Trent initially argued that the IPID Act allowed outside entities to provide assistance. However, when lawmakers asked her to point to the exact clause, she could not do so. At that point, the pressure inside the hearing room intensified, and Trent became visibly emotional. MPs grow more skeptical. Despite Trent's attempts to clarify her role, many lawmakers remained unconvinced. She insisted that neither Trent nor O'Sullivan's organization managed the investigation. Instead, she said their involvement was limited to supporting tasks, such as research or background checks. According to her explanation, IPID investigators always remained in control of the official investigation. But MPs continued to question whether such collaboration, even in a supporting role, might have crossed legal boundaries. Their concern is simple but serious. If private investigators influenced official probes, could those investigations still be considered independent? That is the question the parliamentary committee now hopes to answer. What happens next? The inquiry is far from over. Parliament's ad hoc committee will continue hearing testimony from witnesses connected to the investigation. Lawmakers are trying to determine whether private actors improperly influenced investigations that were meant to hold powerful police officials accountable. If evidence shows that the legal framework governing IPID was breached, the consequences could be significant. It could lead to reforms in how police oversight investigations are conducted, and it could also raise broader questions about the relationship between private investigators and state institutions. For now, one thing is clear. The hearings have already exposed deep tensions within South Africa's system of police accountability, and as more witnesses take the stand, the full story may still be unfolding.